You're listening to the Happy Workaholic podcast. I'm your host, Kellyanne Gorman. This show was once about business, LinkedIn, and my life with an autoimmune disease. And then one day I found out I was misdiagnosed, so I had to switch things up a bit. Life is so short, and when you're given a second chance, you better believe I'm going to take it, celebrate it, and share it with you. I'm on a mission to help women take their business and life to that next level they deserve to be at. This show is intended to elevate your mind, upgrade your business, enhance your life, and become part of a positive and uplifting community. Inspiration, motivation, and determination are what got me to where I am today, and I cannot wait to share these amazing stories of other female entrepreneurs who will be featured on the show. If you have a story or brand you want to share, send me a message on Facebook and Instagram today. You can find me at the Happy Workaholic. I would love to connect with you. Do you want a live chat during this episode? Make sure you're listening on iHeartRADIO. I'm here to remind you to work hard, stay humble, follow your dreams, and never, ever give up. Thanks for taking the time to subscribe to the Happy Workaholic podcast. And now let's get into today's show. Hey guys, happy Friday. So I've been polling my Instagram audience on whether or not I should share the story of when I moved to Mexico. Why, how, what happened, when I came back, like all these things. And I think it got to like 72% wanted to hear. And I'm like, for those of you that don't want to hear, then just don't listen. So the 72% of you that wanted to hear, here it is. So this time last year, by the way, I'm going to share with you the entire story, and then I'm going to tell you like 3 takeaways, like 3 things I learned that you yourself can take in anything in life, takeaways, right? So this time last year, I had gone to my specialist, neurologist, and I still didn't have in writing 150% was I really misdiagnosed. There was a common theme across the board with different doctors I had and specialists, but I didn't have it in writing. So I just assumed, like, I mean, I didn't know. I could still be blind and paralyzed, like, within, snap of a finger. And I didn't know. And I was sick of living like that. I was sick of, am I really going to have to do chemo for the rest of my life? Like all these questions. So one morning, I don't remember when it was, but one morning I woke up and I was like, I'm moving to Mexico. I want to wake up next year in another country and start my life over. And I had done my research and I had asked so many people, like, is it safe with the hospitals there? Is it okay that I go? Like, I'm not fluent in Spanish. I can understand everything. But, if I'm going to be blind and paralyzed, like, I kind of need to be fluent in Spanish if I'm going to move to Mexico. And everybody that I've spoken to, so many other medical professionals are like, you're fine. They have great hospitals. Like, you're totally fine. So I'm like, you know what? I've beat the odds like this far, like I'm fine. That was originally my only concern. So I went with my gut as always, and I packed up my stuff. And, I'm very lucky. I have a business where I can work from anywhere. So that was a luxury. And I started, backtrack. So I started looking at furnished luxury studios, and I found one. So I was researching the area. I was talking to the manager of the building. I don't know why I'm like losing all my train of thought right now, because I'm like literally visualizing myself there. You guys, this is such a crazy story, and this should be on my second podcast, All the Vibes, because this is definitely a crazy story and WTF moment. So many WTF moments, but I'm going to try to keep it shorter and not like ramble on, because it's like a really long story and I don't want to make it a 2-parter. So I found my luxury condo, my cute little studio. Everything was brand new. I was texting back and forth. The manager, he was actually in San Diego, owned other properties. Like, I felt super comfortable. And I went to Big Lots and Target, and I got all these clear bins because I thought it would be so easy to go through customs with everything in clear bins. So once I decided I was moving, I got all the things I needed. I hired a private driver so that I could cross over the border with him and make my life easy. Well, I still had all these prescription medications I was on because nothing was in writing yet. Like, do I still have NMO? Like, what's going on? So I was still on these meds. I hadn't tapered off anything yet. So I doubled up on my meds so that I wouldn't have to cross over the border, which, by the way, was like 20 minutes and you just cross over the border, like super easy, go to CVS. And that was fine, but I didn't want to do that right away. I wanted to just stay in Mexico and like live my damn life in a new country. So I doubled up on my meds. I brought them across. So we got stuck at customs for like 47 minutes because they thought I was going to sell these drugs. And so we had to tell a little story so that, not like a bad story, just like I was the girlfriend of my driver and I was sick. I mean, that was really the story. So nothing illegal. And because they were like, why do you have all of this? And, he just said I was sick. So we crossed over the border and the address wasn't working in his GPS. And then it just like wasn't showing up. And then my driver, who was so nice, he called like a bunch of his friends and they're like, oh, I think it's by this place. I think it's by this place. And they're like, nothing's over there. And so finally we called an Uber because the Uber drivers in Mexico know where everything is. So we call an Uber at a gas station when we crossed over the border. We were just lost. We could not find out like where this place was. My phone wouldn't connect to the Mexican. My phone, I had already set it up and it wasn't working. So I couldn't text the guy I've been talking to. So finally I got his number out of my phone and then the Uber driver was calling him and then he understood where it was. And he's like, that's not a good area. He's like, I don't even want to drive in that area. Like grown men did not want to go to this area where my beautiful luxury studio was. So, and I had to go to the bathroom so bad, by the way. And I'm like, I don't know why I was like pounding waters. It was, I had left Del Mar. So it was about, like an hour and a half. No, it was like about 2 hours till we crossed over the border. But usually that drive is like a half hour, 40 minutes tops. But going through customs is like insane. So I have 2 grown men telling me, you don't want to go to that area. I'm like, well, it's already paid for. Like, let's just go. Let's just figure it out. And I'm like, but what the hell? It's not where it was supposed to be. And I had asked, like, can I walk to, like, coffee shops? Can I walk to the movie theater? Like, he gave me a whole list. Everything's on the website. Like, I felt totally fine. Like, I've lived in a third world country before, but I was actually on a cruise ship, and I had armed guards covering our boat. Totally different scenario. But I like to live on the edge, and I was just over dealing with this medical shit, like over it. So I was just ready for a change. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be fine. It's totally fine. I wasn't even scared at this point. Then when we start going, it was like 20 minutes now we're driving. It's getting colder and windier, and we're making our way up to a mountain. And I'm like, what the hell? And my driver is like, I don't think you should stay here. Like, this is not, I would never even bring my wife here. Like, this Uber driver that we're following doesn't even know. So we followed the Uber driver. He was like our tour guide to the place that I had paid for. And he was just like, this is no bueno. This is not good. And they were saying, like, I can't even go outside showing my cell phone. I can't even walk in the daylight 2 blocks. I mean, it was such a bad area. So this address didn't even appear on Google Maps because it's a brand new development, but it's like in the worst possible area. And I just made a really bad choice. So I decided to spend the night, and the door was just like a bedroom door. Like, I had everything lined up behind that door. God forbid somebody tried to knock that down. And I had my friend and her boyfriend on Facebook video. Just our computer screens were both open. So that if something happened, and then they were on Google Earth or Google Map, and they were like, oh my God, like, you're like in the mountains. It was this like crazy situation. And it was so windy, and the fireworks were going off because it was New Year's Eve, and I didn't know if it was gunshots or fireworks. Like, it was such a bad area. So I survived to the night, And then the next day, I had unpacked, I had decorated. I was like, I'm going to tough it out. But then I realized, like, this driver that I had hired, like, did research for me. And he's like, you have to leave that area. Like, you can't be there. It's not where you thought you were going to be. And so I didn't want to say anything, and I just left. And then I asked for my money back after. And, he's like, let me pick you up with my wife and my kids, and I'm going to bring you to where you thought you were going. So he did that. And he's like, this is where you thought you were going. This is like a 20-minute walk to the border. Like, this is where all the Americans are. This is where you should be. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, why don't we... No, I spent 2 nights. And so the third day, he picked me up. I moved all my stuff out. Thank God it was like in clear bins. But then I'm like, oh shit, I can't believe it's in clear bins. Everybody's watching, like, look at this dumb American girl with all of her stuff in clear bins, clearly visible. And so that wasn't the smartest. Like, definitely learned my lesson. So I just kept, I trusted this driver. And so then I got into his van and he dropped me off. He's like, why don't you stay at a hotel? But it was actually like a motel. Stay here because it's super cheap, but like, this is the area where you thought you were moving to. Like, see if you like the area and then find another condo like right here. But like, I feel like you should stay where you thought you were supposed to come, and saying like, instead of saying like, peace out, I want to leave, go back to the States. So I stayed this one extra night at the motel, and it was, I think, $19 because we're in Mexico. It was dirt cheap. I realized that there was holes in the window. I had to ask for like 8 blankets. I was probably like the most high maintenance person they've ever seen in their life. I was so cold. I had like 3 layers of clothes on. I had like 5 comforters. Like, it was just a shit show. And then the next morning, and it was so dark when we moved all my stuff. And so it was like cold and windy, and I had no idea it was going to be that cold. So I like didn't even go prepared with like winter clothes. Like, I was just in such a rush to like start a new life. And so actually the day I moved was the 31st or the 30th. No, I think it was the 30th because I wanted to go before New Year's Eve because I didn't know how crazy it was going to be at the border. So I went on the 30th. So then we had the fireworks the next night, and then it was January 1st where I moved to the area in Mexico where I thought I was moving, and I spent the night there, and my friends in the States were like, just stick it out for a week, like, just see how you feel. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not going to be able to come back to the States. I feel like they're going to shut the border down. I have such anxiety, and it was so crazy. So I stuck it out that one night, and I went for a walk the next morning, and I found the cutest little coffee shop, and it really was the area like where I wanted to be. And everybody's like on their laptops working, like doing everything that I thought I was going to be doing. And I still just had this gut feeling like, get the hell out. Like, something's going to happen at the border. You are not going to be able to come back over. Or then I started getting anxiety about, like, am I going to be blind and paralyzed? Is it going to happen here? Like, it was just crazy. And I had so many, like, my friends were saying, like, stay a couple more days. And then my other, like, it was like a divide, like 50-50. They're saying stay or get the hell out. So a lot of my friends were like, I can't believe you're moving to Mexico right now. Like, you're crazy. Because the border was crazy. Like, everything happening with like everybody throwing those like gas bombs and the kids, and just like, it was just a crazy time to try to like change my life and do this. But I just had to do it. So I went. And all these, like, it was just so scary being at this place that I thought was somewhere else. And so thank God for this driver that I hired, because he said, okay, if you don't want to stay, he's like, you should stay. You should try it. Like, you're going to meet so many people. Like, this is where you thought you were going to be. I'll help you find another place. And him and his wife, they had a newborn baby. They had 2 little kids. Like, they were so sweet. They were driving me everywhere, like showing me like everything that I would want to do and where I would want to be. And like, just try it for the week. So long story short, I was there less than 7 days. It was just a whirlwind. I don't think I slept for the 7 days because I was so nervous that somebody was going to break into my place and like either, you know, something would happen, like a really bad Lifetime movie. Let's just say that. And that's what I was visualizing. And it was so scary. And I literally could not walk outside in broad daylight. It was so scary. And I had no idea. Like, I thought I was going to a completely different place. And I tried my best. I tried to, convince myself, like, okay, let me go to the mall. Let me walk around. There's so many more Americans around. Like, let me figure it out. But I just had this gut feeling, like, get the hell out. Like, something was going to happen. I don't know. And I had this all planned out in my head. Like, if something happens, I go to the hospital. If something else happens, I can cross over the border. I'm close enough. Where I was actually like almost 50 minutes east, like over the border, like into the mountains where like no one goes. And that's why it's a really, really bad area. And they had so many disturbing, violent situations that had happened the week before I got there in that exact spot. So it was just not a good area. So what else happened? I came back and I was literally hysterically crying as soon as I saw our flag and crossed over that border. There were so many feds at the border because so many more things were going on. There was kids everywhere. Like, it was just so sad and scary at the same time because, like, you didn't know what was going to happen. And it took almost 2 hours to cross over the border. So I had the driver that I had hired. He dropped me off at a friend's, and then I just moved on with my life here in San Diego. And that's a very long story short. It was an experience, but I don't regret it. I wish that I would have not been so trusting in the area where I was going, because there's so many Americans and doctors actually that live in where I thought it was going. And they do that because they can live luxuriously for not a San Diego price point. And so, I'd done my research in that aspect, but I just chose a place that was not safe on the inside. I mean, it was beautiful, but where it was on a map and where it was located, I physically could not walk outside in broad daylight. It was just so unsafe. So the moral of my story and the takeaways that you can bring into your life or write these down because they're pretty good. So number one, you need to be adventurous. You need to go with your gut. You need to be spontaneous and just live on the edge. I mean, I'm a very scheduled and routine person, but every now and then you just have to take a chance, take the risk and do your research first. Like, make sure you do it all the way. You need to do something too. You need to do it scared. You need to push yourself beyond a limit that you're used to, working towards and moving towards. And number three, obviously, again, do your research. I gave all of my friends the information of where I was and, the website, the contact, but I never showed them on a map. It wasn't until one of my friends and her boyfriend looked on the map to see exactly where, because I just assumed I was going to the exact spot where it said and the exact spot where I had been and seen that area, but that was wrong. So it's so much better to be more safe than sorry, obviously. And, times have changed. Our world is a very different place than it was many years ago. And, when it comes to moving to a different country, you just need to do a lot more research. I was very lucky that it was a lot close. It was like just a drive over the border, not hopping on a plane and going, to a country that's a lot longer of a distance. And I was lucky I was able to cross back over the border and not have any problems. And yeah, so that is a very long story short of my trip to Mexico. And I think I actually wrote down a couple of notes to see. I think I got everything. Yeah, I did. I got all my points. So for those of you that have been waiting to hear this story, there you have it. And if you remember me posting what this studio looked like, I wish I could have taken pictures of the outside. I'm actually surprised that I didn't, to be honest. I was just so caught up, like, I couldn't believe when I got there, like, where I was. And grown men that I had hired and grown men that were, like, professional drivers were afraid to be in this area. And then I just show up like, no, I'm going to be fine. Anyway, So that's the story. So again, my 3 takeaways and advice to you, if you ever decide to do anything crazy in your life or in your professional career, is again, be adventurous, go with your gut, do it scared, just learn how to push yourself, and make sure you always do your research and show your friends or family where you're going. Have on your iPhone, have the alerts turned on where you are so that if somebody ever needed to find you, God forbid, you're available. And make sure if you're going to another country that everything is mapped out perfectly when it comes to Wi-Fi, cell service, all that, because that's something that killed me. Every time I left an area in Mexico, my phone would just completely turn off, and I had to get different numbers to T-Mobile that were international to get a hold of a human to figure out how I could get my phone on their network on a different satellite. I had to do it like 10 times. And then also when I was trying to call my bank, I couldn't get a hold of my money because I didn't want him to like use my card for wipe out my account. I was like having a heart attack about that. So I definitely learned some lessons, and I'm definitely going to go back. This is the reason why I'm recording this show now, is because I really want to go back before the end of the year, before it gets crazy. And kind of like, I went in the beginning of the year, so I want to go at the end of the year, but this time on vacation. This time in a whole different, on a different level, different scenario, and different area of Mexico, and kind of finalize my year and prep for, end this chapter and move on to the next. And I feel like going there is where I need to do it, but I haven't completely finalized that yet. So stay tuned for that. You can definitely hear more on my second podcast, All the Vibes, which you can listen to on the Happy Workaholic .com or go on Apple or Spotify. It's also available there. But all the visual stories you can actually see over on my Instagram, which is, of course, the Happy Workaholic. So I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I know a lot of you have been asking me about it literally over the course of this year. I'm like, I'm not ready to share. Like, it was just so crazy. Now I can laugh about it, but like, I don't think I slept for 5 days, and I'm still alive to tell it. So that's a fantastic bonus. I can now share this story with you. It was definitely a risk, and I still have those clear bins, and every time I look at them and I move them out of storage or I move into a place, I'm like, oh my God, these clear bins have been back and forth over the border. Like, they definitely have a story to tell. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and let me know your 2 cents over on Instagram. Send me a DM. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will be back after the holidays with a new show. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone who you feel needs to hear this message. And don't forget to tag me at The Happy Workaholic on Facebook and Instagram so I can feature you on my stories. And if you have 2 minutes and listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I would love it if you could leave me a review. Those messages mean so much to us podcasters, and they really help me create more of the content that you'll love. Want to continue today's conversation? It's simple. Head to Facebook and search for the Happy Workaholic Network Facebook group. Answer the questions and you're in. For more information on myself, coaching programs, weekly newsletter, and more, visit thehappyworkaholic.com. The Happy Workaholic podcast is part of the iHeartRADIO podcast network. Be sure to follow the Happy Workaholic podcast on iHeartRADIO or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope that your day continues to be happy, healthy, positive, and productive, and I'll talk to you again soon.